You want to talk about a good afternoon? I have one of my favorite actors here. I'm at one of my favorite places in New York City. How you doing, Amir?
I'm super happy to be here. Thank you for having me on this extraordinary day. It's a little hazy out, but there's something romantic about that.
There is.
I can see the Empire State Building, and it's pretty great.
Listen, we're going to talk about the Kite Runner. I got to see you in this. You are incredible. But all I could think of is, oh my goodness, he does not leave the stage. I need to feed him. So we are here at the Skylark. We could eat after the interview, but for you, we did little fried chicken sliders. For me, we have the tuna poke tacos and then some guacamole, a virgin drink for you, and one of their signature cocktails for me.
What's that one called?
This is the Skyline. So this has been here since they opened.
Looks fancy, looks nice.
Yeah.
I can't bite food right away, otherwise I'll spend the entire time talking to
I
you,
know.
cleaning my mouth,
Trust
ruining my
me.
shirt. I can be messy.
Yeah, no, and I love the Skylark. They're very supportive of the Broadway
So
community,
great.
and I told them that I had this interview with you, and they said, please, please, what can we do? So here we are.
I'm super happy to be here. Thank
Yeah,
you.
you know, we get to talk to you year after year after year on our
know.
show about the Blacklist. And I really believe that you picked the hardest role currently on Broadway to make your Broadway debut with, in the Kite Runner.
I didn't plan for that. I don't.
No.
It happened to my amazing manager, Lillian, because I was kind of a little bit taking a break from theater. I really enjoy TV, and theater takes everything. But I was like, I'll do a play if it's the perfect role, at the right time, with the perfect team. And she's like, you know, the Kite Runner's coming to Broadway. I think there's a role that's right for you. The role's name happens to be named Amir.
Which
I was
was
like, all right.
crazy.
And I was like, honestly, when I auditioned for it, I auditioned for it more just to like, because I've done a couple plays during the hiatuses of the Blacklist, but I had done readings of them. They had just come to me. This is the first theater audition I've done in like 9 or 10 years. And I wanted to just kind of do the audition as an exercise. But it was while I was shooting this crazy intense arc on the Blacklist, and the whole thing was just, I just wanted to do it to experience it, and then I got it, and I was like, oh boy, now I got to do this thing, and it's been honestly both the honor, I cherish it. It's been the hardest thing I've ever done, and in some ways the most rewarding thing I've ever done. I don't take it lightly, and I am cherishing it's exhausting, but I even cherish the exhaustion, if that makes sense.
Knowing you, it does make sense. And I could say, you know, we interview a lot of people on our show. We get to meet a lot of people. I can say, you're one of like the hardest workers.
Oh.
And you could always tell. You could always tell in these like tiny little pockets that we get to spend with one another. I've always said, like, he's just someone to watch. And then sitting in that theater, I was floored. I was absolutely floored. For anyone who hasn't read the book, The Kite Runner, who anybody who hasn't heard of this story, what will they expect when they are in this theater?
It's a long evening, but I promise you will be, well, my dad said, he's like, the scenes just move and build and the story builds and it keeps going places you can't imagine. But if you stick with it, there is some hope and redemption just at the end. You've got to go through I have to go through, and the audience has to go through, we all have to go through a very rough, heartbreaking story. Without giving away any spoilers, the span of the show is 26 years. Act 1, my character is looking back in a memory from age 12 to 13.
Yeah, you're playing
Yeah.
12-year-old
Yeah.
Amir in Act 1.
Yeah. It's fun
wild.
to kind of switch into that.
Yeah.
It's really theatrically sort of satisfying to sort of look back and then step into the memory. It's really like just fun. I don't know how to explain it, just switching that up, and then how the memory informs the narration. So the experience of this one scene, and then I turn out and what I'm experiencing and how I feel about myself back then, and the duality. He behaves not well. He behaves very cowardly, and he projects a lot of his pain, and it's very difficult to watch and experience. But then I get to, it's like he's a coward, and then I get to step out and face the audience and be brave with my cowardice and expose sort of like airs his dirty laundry. So that duality is, I can get goosebumps. It's like a real privilege. And then Act 2, you span 25 years, where he grows up and he becomes an immigrant in America, but he has this secret shame from something that he's holding inside from Act 1, and then all the things that unfold and the things he didn't realize about Act 1 that he learns towards the end of the play that change everything.
feel like it's a show you need to see a few times.
Wow.
Right? You know what I mean? Because like sitting there,
There's a lot to take in.
There's a lot to
Lots
take in,
look
but it
at.
also moves, right? Like it moves, and it's long. It's not a short show, right? I think it's about 2 hours and
It's in total with intermission, it's about 2:30.
2:30, right?
Yeah.
So it definitely moves, but then I just like I kept kind of wanted to like rewind, like wait, I want to see that again. I wanted that, you know, because your mind, you have to.
There's a lot.
Yeah, it's quick. It's quick. It's a long show, yet it's a quick show. If that makes sense.
I know, and I'm always wondering because sometimes there's some serious pausing. You have to take breaths to allow what happens. I mean, there's deaths and there's a lot that happens. And I remember actually talking to the director, and I was like, I feel like am I married to this music? Do I have to go as slow as this music? Actually, the music director said something really, really brilliant. It's a sad scene where I have to kind of reference back to, and I was like, dude. I want to keep the play moving. Look, this is a long evening. I don't want people to start fidgeting in their seats. Take your time. You can take your time with that. My instinct was like, let's keep it going. But it's a moment of, I'll take it, it's after the final scene with Baba. Mm-hmm. And there is a music cue that is very haunting. And I said, well, what happens if I finish the monologue before the music cue ends? Then you just wait for the music cue to end. And it's like I'm actually at a grave, sort of praying and giving respect. And if I finish after the music cue, which hasn't happened, then I just take a breath and continue. So they're wonderful direction to allow it to breathe how it experiences that night. Yeah. So it's pretty special.
You said you were looking for the perfect role at the perfect time. So why is this the perfect role and why is this the perfect time?
Well, first it was my Broadway debut. The role is named Amir. So there's something serendipitous and what's going on with that. It's as challenging as a role I could imagine, just the endurance of the role.
You need a challenge. You're someone who needs a challenge, don't you?
Yeah. What's the point of becoming an actor or storyteller if you don't face your fears? If the more scared I was, even parts of the role I didn't like. I really didn't like. I was like, how can I get behind this? And you're taught when you're an actor to make active choices, but so much of him is indecisive. How do you take indecision and make it active? That's where the monologues actually helped, because you can look back at that. And I was like, oh, this is going to be, the audience is going to hate me, and this is going to be, but it's like, you're not doing this to be likable. You're doing this to humanize someone that is very troubled. And it was actually in my callback where I sort of discovered the love inside of him, and it's just misplaced love that he doesn't know what to, he's a motherless child. He's got a father he wants to impress, and they're very different. He's a young writer. The father is a hard worker. He's kind of internal. The father is very, boisterous and presentational, and he's just trying to find how he fits in. He's born into privilege. He's born with a silver spoon in his mouth, so he doesn't really have awareness of the troubles of those around him. He was born into it, and there's love inside of him, though, and it takes a long time for him to figure out and accept that in himself. It's so challenging that it's special, and like anything in life.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're going to run I don't know, how do people run the New York City Marathon? Like, you train, you don't know how you're going to do it, and then you do it, and it's the most rewarding experience you can imagine. So I knew no matter what would happen, I had to face this. If I fall on my face or if I jump up, I needed to know.
Yeah, I think also coming off of the Blacklist, coming off
Right.
of 9 seasons of the Blacklist, you kind of have to do something that scares you.
Absolutely.
Right.
I couldn't agree more. And it's not easy because that's my family, the Blacklist, and the role of Aram is, I can't imagine a role that I would have wanted to play more. But 9 years, I've been with him for 9 years, and also at the end of last season, my character in the Blacklist has sort of a nervous breakdown. I don't know. I was like doing that arc while I'm preparing for this role. I was like, what am I?
It's crazy.
What is this? What is this life? But it's a dream. Look, a series and a Broadway show. Like, are you kidding me? This is more than I could have even hoped for. And I felt like in some ways the character in some ways peaked. It's like he overcame, in some ways sort of like in the end of the Kite Runner, he overcame all his doubts and insecurities, and he accepted everything about himself and about the world he's in the Blacklist. So it was the most natural thing to then get the call about the Kite Runner. It's like, yeah, I can say, but my character is still alive on the Blacklist, so anything can happen.
Oh.
We don't know. I'm not full-time on the Blacklist. I'm in the Kite Runner, but who knows? I honestly don't know. I really don't know what's going to happen.
That's so exciting.
But
that is so exciting.
Again, who knows?
Who knows? Who knows? Okay, For people, again, who aren't familiar with the Kite Runner,
Yeah.
would you say this is a father-son story? Would you say this is a story about redemption? Would you say this is a story about friendship? Would you say this is a story about race relations? Like, what is it a story about?
I'm going to say yes.
It's kind of all of the above, right?
I'm going to say yes to all of that.
Okay.
I think a big element to all of that is survival. How do you stay alive? How do you survive shame? How do you survive grief? How do you survive family that might have a dysfunction to it? How do you survive betrayal in friendship? How do you survive weakness? How do you survive when your country is being destroyed and you come from everything and then you have to come to America with nothing? So I find the trace of survival sort of through all those things. But yeah, it is about friendship. It's also about, towards the second act, it's about a husband and wife as well. Marriage, how do you survive marriage? There's a thing like he says in 15 Years of Marriage, I could feel her emptiness. Sometimes at night we'd roll onto our separate sides of the bed and I could feel her emptiness growing as if a living, breathing thing had crept into our marriage. And how do they make their way forward? So it's the routine of marriage, like, there's so much to unpack. And then well, I don't want to give too much away, but she becomes the only family he has left until he learns of something. So I would say yes to all of that. And what's really special to me about all those human things that hopefully we can all relate to is the backdrop is real history. It takes place from 1973 up until 2001. It's almost like we take us through history that many people don't know about Afghanistan and all the internal beauty and internal conflicts. And it gets us to 2001 where, as we all know, 9/11, the world and America became much more aware of Afghanistan. So I can feel it in the audience, and then in 2001, we end the play in 2001. But it's still focused on the human story. We hear about the background of what's going on, so we all can kind of place ourselves where we were in the world where this story comes to a conclusion. It's very, very special.
I had to cheat and write this down. You'll know it by heart, but the first thing you say on that stage is, I became what I am today at 12. So I was thinking a lot about that line. And I'm curious, for you as the actor, like, when would you say you became what you are today? Like, what was that age? What was that thing? And then I want to know about you, the person, too.
What's amazing about that line is I decided to be an actor at the age of 12.
Oh, that's so cool.
And I wanted to prove to my dad that I could do it.
That's awesome. And this is your first line on your Broadway debut. Your Broadway debut.
I didn't know until he came to opening that when he saw it at opening, I just wanted to make my dad proud. That all of a sudden after opening, I felt lighter. I didn't know from the start. I was like, can I do this through opening? And then he came and he was so excited. He was like doing this after the show.
If you make me cry off any more fake eyelashes, because I went through a pair when I went to see the show and I'm going to do it now. That's incredible.
Yeah. And he was like concerned. Are you sure? You're a smart kid. My mom was like, you have talent. This is your dream. He's like, you can do so many things. And then, of course, Blacklist, he gets so excited. Like, you know, when he's in the OR and they're all talking about the plot of the Blacklist. Oh, don't tell me, I haven't seen it yet. I have to go home. No. But this is, so I became an actor. I had been doing plays since I was in the 3rd grade, but I remember getting a laugh in a play in the 6th grade called My Robot Buddy. And I remember getting a laugh, and it was a Broadway-sized house, but it was filled with lower schoolers, like from kindergarten through 6th grade, getting this rolling laugh. And I was like, and I remember instinctively, I was like, if I go up with the inflection on this line, I think it might get a response. It did, and I was like, yeah, this is what I do. But that was just like the drug of the performing and the love you get from performing and sort of the attention. And that was it as a kid, but it's completely changed. And now I just want to tell special stories.
But it's really wild, just to go back to it for a second, when you think about the fact that you, at 12 years old, this is when you knew what you wanted to be. You're making your Broadway debut with a character with the same name, and your first line is like, what a full circle moment.
And he wanted to become a writer at 12. He wanted to become an artist, and his dad didn't approve.
That's so cool.
It's wild. But then his dad is so proud. At the very end of the play, the dad wants to read his 12-year-old writing. It's like wild. It's wild. But in the play, he is talking about at that moment, he is talking about a moment of cowardice. So he did want to become a writer. That is true at 12. But he is talking about a moment of cowardice that haunts him. And he's facing the audience. Now, when you read the novel, it's a personal experience, and he's sort of narrating in past and present tense. So in the play, the function is I'm sort of telling in the present tense to the audience what I did in the past, and I have to take the audience through a series of events that led to a phone call, that then we get back to that phone call 2/3 of the way through the show. And then we sort of enter the present tense. And then it's like, I don't know what's going to happen, and he's going with it, and all these new revelations, and how he's going to face it, because he's forced to face it. So it's like a memory play for 2/3, and then we sort of enter sort of his present tense, that's 26 years later.
You say memory play, and I think you know where I'm going with this, but that's something that I got when I was in the audience and I was watching this. I kept saying, I feel like I'm watching memories play out. And so I was curious for you, years from now, decades from now, when you look back on your Broadway debut in The Kite Runner, and like, what are those memories for you that you're gonna take with you forever?
So I think I might answer this a little differently.
Okay.
In order to do this play, I knew I had to just go day by day. Show by show, act by act, scene by scene, moment to moment. So when I look back, I'll look back at the last show. And I look forward to tonight's show. And that's as much as I want to do. I want to be in the moment. I can look back at 12 years old and talk about that, but it's not for me to decide what my memory will be of it in. I do know that my dad coming was my parents. That was special. And that just happened. It still is special as I talk about it. But maybe that's the answer.
Yeah.
But honestly, I just want to be in the present moment. I don't allow myself. If something feels really good, you can't get too high. If something doesn't feel right, you can't get too low. Just step by step. The joy is in the journey.
Yeah, how are you dealing with that? Because TV, those are totally different muscles, right? You do a take, okay, great, cut, another take, this, that. You could kind of control stuff. You direct, you're a director as well. Like, so you can control your surroundings, you can control your settings. You can't on Broadway. You cannot.
You risk it all.
How is that for you?
Amazing. You have no choice but to roll with the punches. You know, things may happen, cell phones may go off, and you just, the beauty of being narrating as well is I can address, so if something goes wrong, I can actually address it.
Which you've done.
Were you there when something happened?
I wasn't, but I was watching a clip online about it, but like somebody's phone went off with Siri, right?
Someone went off with Siri. A dog actually barked. I think it was a service dog. I was like, it was towards a very sensitive moment when the character is praying, and a dog barked, like a little woof, and then it barked again, and I remember just being like, "It's okay, doggy." The place like lost it, but it was a serious moment. And as they're laughing and applauding, it's great. And I just raised my hands and said, "Okay, everyone, I'm going to now pray," and we go right back into the play. Yeah. So I never want to fight the audience, because then there are people shifting in their seats. I just want to make sure the story is clear. I feel like there's a responsibility as the narrator as well to make sure all the story points are landed. You know, people ask about the difference between TV and theater, and there is a huge sort of system like that's different in place. But in terms of acting, you want to prepare as much as you can, as much as time as you've been given, and you just want to tell the truth. Yeah. So it doesn't matter if it's a close-up that's like right here, or a master, or a Broadway house. You just want. I heard recently someone say that comparing it to TV or film is like doing a play is like you're doing your close-up and your master at the same time. I thought that was really, if you want to like put it in TV terms, I thought that was really, really insightful.
What do you love about it?
You know, it's like right before, like as you're getting in your dressing room 5 minutes, you're like, what am I doing? This isn't, why am I doing this? Oh my God. And then you just breathe and you step out there. And then when you finish, it's like I don't know how to answer that, but it's almost like when you're on stage, there's no time to worry or whatever's going on in your life, you just stop and you tell this story, and in some ways you can work it out through the storytelling. And also, if there's anything worrisome, it's like, look, the privilege of being on Broadway and getting this is like the dream of so many, and there's such tragedies going on in Afghanistan right now, and have been for 40 years. If I ever worried, it's I don't sound stupid, but it's like not about me at all. It's about the story. And if like I have a duty, so it becomes a little more purpose than, oh, can I do it? It becomes like, you have to do it. Mm-hmm. I don't know, what do I love about it? That I'm able to do it. I don't know. That I'm able to do this. I didn't know if I could, and yeah. Yeah,
and you're doing an insane job of it, to the point where I was in the audience and I was worried for you. I was like, he doesn't leave the stage. There's not many shows where someone doesn't leave the stage the entire time. And that's why I wanted to feed you.
I will say that, you know, I eat as clean as I can usually in my life. But with this show, I lost 5 pounds within the first 2 weeks of rehearsal.
Get me on Broadway.
That's funny. So I started getting to eat whatever I want. I'm like having desserts, I'm having breads and mayos, and I can't wait to eat this chicken sandwich, and like dessert and chocolate at night, and like things that I wouldn't allow myself, and it's just getting burnt off. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, I have to, during intermission, I'm like eating like a power bar or trail mix, something that won't make me feel heavy, but I need the blood sugar, and then also chips. My vocal coach taught me chips actually salivate the voice. It's over, so I eat like either a power bar, and then I eat a bag of chips, and as I'm literally finishing the chips, I'm walking to places.
Stop it.
And a Powerade or a coconut water.
Listen, talk to
or
whoever
one
you
of these
gotta talk to.
delicious cranberry orange juices.
I got to get myself a role on Broadway, because I got 10 pounds from COVID that still need to come off. So if that does the trick, there we go.
There's a TV star here.
Okay, so people always say, like, tell me what you were thinking about opening night, but they don't realize that you have weeks of previews prior to then. So let's talk about your first preview, when you walked on that stage. What was that feeling like?
It's a little bit of a blur. You just go moment to moment. You just like breathe, and you just go moment to moment, and you're learning. You're like, oh, they're laughing here. You're just learning. I always find that the rehearsals I learn the most in is the table read and the final dress, because you get right back to the story. Oh, what is happening here? Not like what is this about? Da da da. It's like story. Get right back to how the audience is hearing the story, and you can hear that they're with you. So it's like a learning curve. You just breathe through it, and I've made a promise to myself, and I tell it to other people, like, oh, this happened, I'm sorry I dropped that line. I always say to my company members, there are no mistakes. But keep going, don't worry about it. Oh, Amir, I jumped your line. It's okay, it was something new. There's no mistakes. This is theater, there's no mistakes. You roll with it. The doggy barks, the cell phone rings, it happens. You go with it. I don't want to say this. Was
it when the phone went off with Siri?
No, somebody missed an entrance once.
Oh no!
But I don't want to say. But so I started making up a monologue about what happened in that scene, in case he didn't come on. Running on, and he's a sweetheart. I'm not going to name his name. He's the most amazing actor. He's the sweetest guy. And I ran him after. I was like, don't even worry about it. He was like, oh. I was like, don't even worry about it. It was fun. It taught me that I could. There's no mistakes. There's no mistakes.
That is incredible. What does life after the Kite Runner look like for you?
Again, all I know is that I have a show tonight, and if I can get through tonight, I have tomorrow's the day off. I'm gonna maybe try to watch some TV. But
okay.
And then after that, we have 2 shows. So I hope we run. I hope I'm fortunate enough to stay healthy, and that our company stays healthy, and there's not another pandemic. I hope monkeypox doesn't stop us, or COVID. Like, I hope we can just keep Broadway open, and those are my hopes. But honestly, I'm just grateful to be alive today, to be able to do this and be here with you.
This was really cool. When you first walked on the stage, the guy behind me, he goes, "That's him."
Oh,
and it was just sweet. It was just sweet. I wanted to share that with you. Do you have any good stage door stories yet?
People are really sweet at the stage door. People have been saying some of the sweetest things ever. A lady yesterday, an older lady, I've been seeing Broadway for 50 years. I never waited by the stage door, but I had to meet you. That was amazing. Like something like that.
Did she live on the Upper West Side?
Yeah. Probably.
My
She
neighbor.
was so, yeah, she said really sweet things, and that was so things like that, and you're like, it just reminded, like when people who have immigrated from Afghanistan come and are like crying. I met a guy who had just come over because he was a translator for a U.S. Marine, and that's how he was able to get a visa to come over, and me and him were like hugging and crying, and he was proud of, he understood me when I spoke Dari, and I was like, there's no better compliment than that. There's no better compliment than that. Just want to make like Afghans proud, like this is the best.
This is kind of a loaded one, but
Yeah.
when I say what are you proud of with this show? What are you proud of with this show?
I'm proud of the whole team. You know, it's really, we all really get along. We're really supportive of each other. They all want to prop me up, and I want to prop each and every one of them up. I think I'm most proud of that. Yeah.
What about when you look at the marquee? Like seeing your name, there is something about seeing your name in lights on Broadway. Like there's just something about it.
Yeah, that was nice.
It was nice,
That was
right?
nice. That was nice.
That was nice.
It's like, but honestly, like I go to the theater, and you know, Broadway's it's a five flights up to the dressing room. Backstage is like the stage right is like super tight, where you're like this. It's like high school.
Yeah.
I'm doing a play like I was doing one in high school. You just go out and you do the play. I'm not aware of Broadway when I'm really doing the show. It's really like moments like this. It's like, oh yeah, wow, this is cool. Like,
and so not only is it his playbill, but like you
Okay.
open up the page and you're right there. It was so cool. This is
I
really,
have good
really
publicists
sweet.
right over there.
Very nice interview, by the way. I mean, do you walk around the city a little bit different, right? Like, 'cause listen, it's one thing, I know that you guys always shot in New York with the Blacklist, but like, it's another thing to be on Broadway and being in New York. It's just a different type of a vibe. Like, do you see the city differently?
City's a little crazy.
I know.
It feels like Times Square and everything's gotten like nuttier. It's kind of like, it's a lot of energy. So it's like, whoa, I kind of have to go right home and
Yeah.
sort of save my energy. Do I see it differently? You know, you step out of a Broadway house and you're Times Square, there's every single type of demographic you can imagine. Everyone from around the world. People have come in and be like, I flew in from India because I wanted to see this show. And I went like, there's everything. There's everything in here, every type of food. There was a street fair on 8th Avenue the other day, you know, so I walked around that between shows. I bought like a bracelet, you know what I mean? I got like a slushie or something. And you just walk down and every age, every nationality, there's everything. There's loud people, there's quiet people, it's a lot of energy actually to
Yeah.
take in when you're sort of trying to save your energy for a show. But yeah, I know, this is New York City, it's the center of the world.
Let's end with one thing you would want everybody to know about the Kite Runner on Broadway.
If you read the book and you love the book, come see a book you love brought to life by the most amazing company on stage. If you haven't read the book, you have to see this story. And I've heard from people that have read both. It's an important story. I've yet to meet anyone that says they haven't cried. Even my dad, I was like, did you cry? My mom's like, he cried at this part.
Like, I need to meet your parents.
Yeah. They're funny. Whether you see Broadway shows or not, whether you've read the book or not, and I'm not just saying this because I'm in it, it's a very, very special story. And if you like stories, come check us out.
I'm so happy for you. Cheers to an incredible conversation and an incredible Broadway debut.
Thank you for having me.